Post-Watch News starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Another chilly day. Hey, but at least the snow is gone. Here's Michael with a check on your forecast.
Seemed like most of it had melted off, at least for the central and southern portions of the four states, really by the late afternoon hours. So now we just got to find a way to stay warm today. 31 degrees outside of Television City with a wind chill right now of 24. 31 in Joplin, 29 in Parsons, and 30 in Lamar and Carthage. Now, that's not much as even being able to hit the ground on the Skywatch storm tracker. Even if we throw on the sweeping radar there, we see just a little cloud cover up to the north. So let's talk about our watches and warnings that we've got in effect. Freeze warning lasting all the way until 9. This is not patchy frost this morning. This is the widespread variety. Ground's a little crunchy out there with wind chills as low as 25 in Carthage and 25 in Independence. Cold fronts penetrated all the way through Arkansas and North Texas, so we're not the only ones putting up with the April chill right now. Our weather trend does get better though. Sunny skies for the afternoon lifts us up into the mid-50s, so we are trending in the right direction. And as we push through future track, any precipitation that we do see really doesn't formulate until Wednesday, kind of sprints across right there. Nothing heavy and not looking at anything severe until we get into Thursday night. And then it gets a little bit more widespread. 7-day forecast, temperatures slowly rising into the weekend. At least we got 60s. And then next week, we're throwing up even an 80 to go along with a pair of 70s, bookending that on Sunday and Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week already. Just get through this cold strip.
Get here, please.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, thanks, Michael. Derek Chauvin faces decades in prison after his conviction on murder and manslaughter charges in the death of George Floyd. The former Minneapolis police officer's bail was revoked immediately after the verdict was read. The 45-year-old is expected to be sentenced in June. We have more details on the charges filed by the Quapaw Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary-Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. We're taking a closer look at the charges against Mr. Berry and the others alleged to be involved. One of the charges is embezzlement. It alleges Berry took $1.5 million broken up into a series of monthly installments from the Saracen Casino Resort and Q Store and claimed they were success fees as bonus payments. Another of the notable charges is conspiracy. There are 2 counts of conspiracy in the court documents, count 2 and count 5. Count 2 alleges that Berry conspired with Merlin Jones, then the CFO of Downstream and Saracen Casinos, and a consultant, Alan Mauk, to embezzle funds from the casinos totaling just over $1.3 million. Those funds were issued as checks to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. The Quapaw Nation alleges that Berry then directed Mauk to deposit 3 checks totaling more than $500,000 into a personal bank account owned by Berry. The other conspiracy charge, count 5, alleges that Berry worked with Merlin Jones, Jack Brill, and Tamara Smiley Reeves to embezzle more than $4 million from Downstream and Saracen Casinos as success fees or bonus payments. Those payments were allegedly made to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. There's also a civil case filed by the Quapaw Nation against Berry, Smiley Reeves, and 7 others. They include Jack Brill, Janet Cummings, George McWaters, Marilyn Rogers, Sherry Smiley, Tina Smith, and the heirs of Merlin Jones Jr. Jones passed away earlier this month. Those charges include fraud, constructive fraud, conversion, and unjust enrichment. We reached out for an interview with John Berry. Our request was declined, but John Berry's spokesperson tells us that Berry and the others named in the indictments filed a defamation suit against Michael Crump with Innovated Gaming Solutions, current Secretary-Treasurer Guy Barker, and current Chairman Josephine Byrd. That suit was filed in February in Cleveland County, Oklahoma District Court. A motion to dismiss filed by the defendants has been scheduled to be heard April 26th. The Republican-led Oklahoma House passes a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The vote sends the bill to the GOP-controlled Senate, which failed to consider a similar bill earlier this session. Opponents raise concerns as the bill could lead to the NCAA pulling some championship games from Oklahoma. The Women's College Softball World Series is held in Oklahoma City, generating more than $20 million annually. Joplin School Board of Education met last night to discuss many topics for the district. One in particular is a list of capital outlay projects aimed to better the district's infrastructure. A few projects were aimed at improving Jung Field. One is to improve the safety of handrails in the stadium.
It's just going to be a lot better for people that, once you climb stairs or you get tired, or if a person that's older has a little trouble with balance, we want them to be able to have a little bit safer trip up to the top of the stadium, especially. And that's for everybody's safety as well.
They want to add handrails to the top and say these should be throughout the entire stadium. They also want to waterproof Jung Field to avoid any more leaks. For a list of all their plans, you can check out the full story on our website. Missouri's health director has resigned. Governor Mike Parson announced the departure of Department of Health and Senior Services Director Dr. Randall Williams. Williams was appointed to the job in 2017 by Parson's predecessor, former Governor Eric Greitens. Williams helped to lead the state's response to the coronavirus pandemic and is leaving amid the vaccine rollout. Parson says he's naming his Deputy Chief of Staff, Robert Knodel, to be the state's acting health director. Police crack down on drug-impaired driving on 420. 420 is the unofficial national holiday for the consumption and celebration of cannabis, and that's because more popular in Missouri as medical marijuana dispensaries open in the state. The Missouri Highway Patrol increased enforcement, and the Joplin Police Department is keeping a close eye out for people who may have been driving high.
Our number of DUI arrests in the last several years have increased, and so we're seeing that uptick. But so we're just asking the public to just make smart decisions and be safe.
According to the Missouri Coalition for Highway Safety, 94 people were killed and 181 people seriously injured in 2020 in crashes involving drug use. It's 5:07.
I feel pretty confident in telling you we set an all-time record low at Joplin Regional Airport this morning, get down to 29 degrees around 4 a.m. That breaks our previous record of 30, dating back to 1966 and 1978. And after sunrise at 6:35, then we can finally head in the right direction, get up into the 50s. But remember, the freeze warnings last all the way until 9 a.m. We will roll mid-50s later on today. Kind of do it again. We got more rain going to kick in for Thursday night into Friday morning.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, COVID death rates around the world reach dangerous new records.
The World Health Organization sounding the alarm as new global cases of COVID-19 surpass 5 million. I'm Kevin Cork in Washington with more on which countries are seeing a real surge and how Americans are faring in the race to achieve herd immunity. That's coming up.
Plus, the Missouri State football team is in the playoffs for the first time since 1990. We hear from one former Webb City Cardinal who has helped the team make it to the playoffs. And the mayor in Los Angeles introduces a guaranteed basic income pilot program. How it works, just ahead. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Missouri State football team in the playoffs for the first time since 1990. And the Bears, they got a few local guys on the roster who've helped snap that playoff drought, including offensive lineman Landon Beebe. Beebe's a former Webb City Cardinal, now a redshirt sophomore at Missouri State. First couple of years there, team won 5 games combined. But this spring, they were 5-1, won a conference title, and did so under their first season with new head coach Bobby Petrino.
The first thing he said was, we're going to take the rear view mirror, and we're just going to tear it off. We're not going to look behind us anymore. We're just going to focus on what's ahead of us from now on. We needed that because we were kind of in the mindset of losing. And ever since he came, he just changed the culture, like I said, into a winning culture.
This week, the first week of off-season workouts for the Kansas City Chiefs. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes is on the mend from toe surgery. He went under the knife February 10th. Good news is he's out of a walking boot. Says right now, recovery looks pretty speedy.
I think I'm ahead of schedule myself. I mean, obviously we're trying to be cautious and not push me out there too soon. But I'm doing what I can. I've gotten out of the boot finally. It took forever. And now I'm trying to get back on the field and get that stuff working. And so I'm sure they'll keep me along that same pathway to I can be able to hopefully do some stuff by the end of the offseason.
Couple of COC soccer matches last night in Carl Junction. Bulldogs, they win 2-0 over Neosho. And we had a good one in Carthage as the home team gets a close one, 2-1, beating Joplin High School. St. Louis Cardinals an even 8-8 through the first 16 games of the year. Monday night, they opened up the series against the Washington Nationals with a 12-5 win. Last night, let's get to game 2. Cards aiming to clinch the series. Josh Bell in the 6th inning off Adam Wainwright. Nationals get the first run of the night. Scoreless until the 6th. Next inning, Dylan Carlson. He's got the answer for St. Louis. He goes off the wall. That brings in Yadier Molina. Carlson not stopping. He's in with a triple. Probably could have caught Molina at one point in time. We're all tied up. Wainwright settles down after that. 7 scoreless with 10 strikeouts for Waino. But after he leaves the game, the Nationals get 2 runs off the Cardinal bullpen, and the Nationals win it. Final score, 3-2. In the American League, Kansas City Royals hosting Game 2 of a series against Tampa Bay. KC dropped Game 1 Monday night, and they were not able to even up the series last night. Rays doubled them up. Final score, 14-7. KC back on the diamond for Game 3. That's going to take place a little after 7 tonight. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, Cuba's Communist Party picks its new leader in a post-Castro era. But critics question if anything will change. We'll have the latest. And a check on our frigid 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. 5:17 on this Wednesday morning. Let's talk a little record keeping here as far as April 20th and April 21. Now, last night, 11:45, dropped down to 29 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport. Well, that broke the April 20th record of 30 degrees that goes back to 1953. 15 minutes later, we became April 21st. About 4 a.m., temperature dropped down to 29 degrees. We've already set an April 29th or April 21st record now at 29. That breaks the record set back first in 1966 and then again in 1978. Just an indicator of how big this cold front is and how nasty it's been so far. 31 degrees is where we stand outside of Television City with a wind chill right now of 24. Let's roll 31 in Pittsburgh as well. Miami at 28. And Parsons at 29. So we're going to have a couple records fall here today. This isn't really able to hit the ground. Most of the 4 states remaining clear. That's why we lost any heat that we had trapped in from yesterday. Freeze warnings up until 9 a.m. as the ground gets colder and colder and the wind chills drop as low as 24 in Webb. That's going to be the lowest we see. We get a couple 25s there in Independence and in Carthage as well. Positive aspect, the trough of the jet stream there. It is pushing off to the east toward the Great Lakes. That's going to allow all the cold air to make its way to the east and finally feed us some normal temperatures here as we get closer to the weekend. Right here is our big line where we're seeing the huge change from yesterday. But look, we're still down 6 degrees from where we were on a Tuesday morning. And that's when, of course, we were getting the snow as well. Able to work up in the mid-50s today. That's not too bad at all. Let's put Future Track into motion. Stay clear for most of today. We may see a stray raindrop sprint through here, but really it's Thursday afternoon when we begin to pick up action. And it begins, say, 2, 3 p.m., but then picks up as we head toward the midnight hour as well. As far as the 7-day forecast goes, yeah, hey, at least we're seeing some 60s on the board. And look at next week, all the way up into the 70s. Turn our attention now to the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our Insta poll. A new proposal in L.A. would give cash, no strings attached to thousands of people. Ed Lascos explains how Los Angeles' mayor's proposed pilot program for a universal basic income works.
We have budgeted $24 million to provide $1,000 a month to 2,000 households for an entire year. No questions asked.
The LA mayor using his State of the City address to unveil a guaranteed basic income pilot program. It would make LA the largest city in all the country to give out money to low-income families, no strings attached, as the mayor says, to tear away at poverty in LA.
We're betting that one small but steady investment for Angelino households will pay large dividends for health and stability across our city.
Here in Boyle Heights, the mayor's guaranteed basic income program sounds just too good to be true for some, especially for those suffering the financial hardships from the pandemic.
It's a great idea, sure. Yeah, why not? Yeah, we could all use the help around here.
Georgie says she and her children could really use a monthly income now more than ever.
Yes, it would help me, and a lot of my friends too. Yeah, you know, with the COVID, everything went downhill. You know, I lost my job, so there you go.
From those who are supporting children to others who are just trying to support themselves.
Like for a couple of months, I lost my job, so that's the good thing, you know, that he's thinking about people that don't have like a job or don't have papers, no, or the lower communities. I think that's fine.
The LA pilot program would be similar to others already set up in California cities like Stockton and Compton. While the requirements are still being worked out here at City Hall, LA households would most likely have to meet several of these requirements. Check it: being at or below the poverty threshold, supporting a child under 18, and able to prove a medical or financial hardship due to COVID-19.
I think overall it's a good idea.
A good idea, many say, as long as a financial handout doesn't become a crutch.
Well, hopefully it'll be a program where they can help them at the beginning and then, you know, make them get ahead in life and then become independent. That should be the goal.
Universal income, good idea, bad idea? Let us know on our Facebook page or log on to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Be back with Healthwatch next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, the vaccine rollout continues, but it's not stopping health authorities from urging caution as new global COVID-19 cases are reaching dangerous heights. Kevin Cork reports.
Across the country and the world, new COVID-19 cases and deaths are starting to surge. In the U.S., health officials say more people are getting vaccinated, but younger segments of the population, which haven't received the shots, are highly susceptible to catching and transmitting the virus.
Cases and hospitalizations are increasing in some areas of the country, and cases among younger people who have not yet been vaccinated are also increasing.
Overseas, government officials in India are threatening new lockdowns as cases continue to soar, with authorities recording roughly 130,000 new cases in just one day.
Till a few weeks ago, the situation was in control, and then the second wave of coronavirus has come like a storm.
Meanwhile, Brazil is now reporting more than 4,000 new deaths in 24 hours. This global rise in infections is sparking conversation about vaccine inequity.
It is completely unethical that high-income countries are now vaccinating young and healthy people if that happens at the expense of people in risk groups and on the front lines in low and middle-income countries.
Back in the U.S., now that every adult 16 years and up qualifies for the shots, the CDC says it should be everyone's top priority.
Federal officials say more than 90% of all Americans now live within a 5-mile radius of a vaccine site. Daily oral hygiene to reduce plaque buildup could help lessen the development of lung disease associated with severe COVID-19. That's according to a study in the Journal of Oral Medicine and Dental Research. Researchers found the virus can move directly from the mouth into the bloodstream, particularly in people with gum disease. Frequent social media use may not meet the traditional definition of an addiction. Scottish researchers conducted an experiment and found participants who reported frequent use were no more likely to have their attention drawn to social media app than less frequent users. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Breaking record lows left and right on this Wednesday morning. We even had a record low set last night for April 20th as the temperatures got below the freezing mark. Low of 29 today in Joplin breaks the record for April 21 as well, as we're consistently right at, if not below, the freezing mark with wind chills as low as 24. Now, after we get past sunrise at 6:35, we are going to be able to make it up into the mid-50s here later on, so we got a good 25, 28 degree bump up, but still remember, freeze warnings do persist all the way until 9 a.m. Should stay on the dry side for today and tomorrow morning as well. But speaking of Thursday, that's when we get developments out to the west. Got some rain showers that are going to move in. Not looking at anything severe, but it will increase here Thursday night into Friday. Nice thing is, at least our temperatures are headed in the right direction. We'll have the 60s from Friday to Saturday, 70s on Sunday and Tuesday, and look at that, throw an 80 up on Monday.
At Lander Chevrolet of Joplin,
we're all about going the distance.
Good morning, I'm Tanya Bach with your KOAM News Update. The Republican-led Oklahoma House has passed a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The vote sends the bill to the GOP-controlled Senate, which failed to consider a similar bill earlier this session. Opponents raised concerns the bill could lead to the NCAA pulling some championship games from Oklahoma. The Women's College Softball World Series is held in Oklahoma City, generating more than $20 million annually. Missouri's health director has resigned. Governor Mike Parson announced the departure of Department of Health and Senior Services Director Dr. Randall Williams. Williams was appointed to the job in 2017 by Parson's predecessor, former Governor Eric Greitens. Williams helped lead the state's response to the coronavirus pandemic and is leaving amid the vaccine rollout. Parson says he's naming his Deputy Chief of Staff, Robert Nodal, to be the state's acting health director. Here's Michael with today's forecast.
After record cold for the morning hours, the sunshine at least is going to lift us up into the mid-50s a little bit later on. But remember, we've got a freeze warning until 9 a.m. Going to have some rain Thursday night all the way into Friday. Temperatures into the 60s by the time we get to the weekend.
4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Another chilly day, but you know what? The snow is out of here. Here's Michael with a look at your forecast.
Record-setting cold, Tanya, not only for today, but coming off of last night as well. We sit at 31 degrees right now. In Joplin, 30 in Independence, smattering of 31s running from Nevada, Lamar, and in Carthage. Skywatch storm tracker, most of that white that you see not even able to hit the ground. Little cloud cover up to the north. Majority remains clear, but because we got clear skies, that's also why we've got widespread frost and freeze warnings running until 9 a.m. When we talk about wind chill numbers, we've dipped as low as 23 right now in Independence, Nevada, and in Stockton. The cold front penetrating all the way through Arkansas, Oklahoma, and in to North Texas. Now, give a little bit after sunrise at 6:35, and we will head on up into the 50s for the afternoon hours. Clouds kind of coming and going. Really nothing to worry about as far as rain goes for today. That'll originate tomorrow out to the west, say about 2-3 p.m. is when it will finally begin to creep in. Increases there through the nighttime hours and into Friday. Positive aspect of it is at least we can get back into the 60s on Friday and Saturday. And then got a little warming trend. That'll be a nice change of pace considering that we've bottomed out at 29 for the past 2 days.
Yeah, no kidding. Ooh.
Get to this point in time next year, those records are no longer going to read 1953, 1966, and 1978. It's simply going to read 2021.
Ooh, yep. Well, we hit it. We're making it through it. Whew. Can't wait till it's done. Can't wait till summer now.
Can't wait till Monday either.
Yeah, that'll be
Throw
nice.
that 80 up there.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Derek Chauvin faces decades in prison after his conviction on murder and manslaughter charges in the death of George Floyd. The former Minneapolis police officer's bail was revoked immediately after the verdict was read. The 45-year-old is expected to be sentenced in June. We have more details on the charges filed by the Quapaw Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary-Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. We're taking a closer look at the charges against Mr. Berry and the others alleged to be involved. One of the charges is embezzlement. It alleges Berry took $1.5 million broken up into a series of monthly installments from the Saracen Casino Resort and Q Store and claimed they were success fees as bonus payments. Another of the notable charges is conspiracy. There are 2 counts of conspiracy in the court documents, count 2 and count 5. Count 2 alleges Berry conspired with Merlin Jones, then the CFO of Downstream and Saracen Casinos, and consultant Alan Malk to embezzle funds from the casinos totaling just over $1.3 million. Those funds were issued as checks to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. The Quapaw Nation alleges that Berry then directed Malk to deposit 3 checks totaling more than $500,000 into a personal bank account owned by Berry. The other conspiracy charge, count 5, alleges that Berry worked with Merlin Jones, Jack Brill, and Tamara Smiley Reeves to embezzle more than $4 million from Downstream and Saracen Casinos as success fees or bonus payments. Those payments were allegedly made to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. There's also a civil case filed by the Quapaw Nation against Berry, Smiley Reeves, and 7 others. They include Jack Brill, Janet Cummings, George McWaters, Marilyn Rogers, Sherry Smiley, Tina Smith, and the heirs of Merlin Jones Jr. Jones passed away earlier this month. Those charges include fraud, constructive fraud, conversion, and unjust enrichment. We reached out for an interview with John Berry. Our request was declined, but John Berry's spokesperson tells us that Berry and the others named in the indictments filed a defamation suit against Michael Crump with Innovative Gaming Solutions, current Secretary Treasurer Guy Barker, and current Chairman Joseph Byrd. That suit was filed in February in Cleveland County, Oklahoma District Court. A motion to dismiss filed by the defendants has been scheduled to be heard on April 26th. Joplin Board of Education meets to take care of some new business. The agenda included introducing capital outlay projects to the board for approval. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has more on which projects could soon be implemented in Joplin schools.
These capital outlay projects and their budget were approved back in February, but due to their cost, needed to be formally approved at this meeting. Once approved, the district can hit the ground running.
And this would give the board a chance to ask any questions or look at the bids and look at how things were prepared.
Most of these projects are related to infrastructure, and with the board's approval, can begin immediately, in the hopes money can be in place by the time school starts next fall.
You have about 19 buildings across the district, and you have roofs that reach their duration of time, or air conditioning and heating units and lighting. We've been doing a lot of different things with lighting across the district.
He says the last few years the school district has been trying to replace all of their lighting with LED lights to save money.
It also helps with some of our students with special needs. We've noticed a great increase in terms of their experience at school because of the LED fixtures, and for some particular students that have challenging needs.
It's not just lighting in buildings. At Jung Field, they're also looking at the Friday night lights.
The lighting we have there is old, so we felt like it was time to go ahead and take care of that need as well.
There are also projects relating to improving the safety of Jung Field's bleachers, adding handrails and other seat modifications. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
In last night's vote, the Joplin School Board decided to approve the capital outlay projects, meaning they can now begin working on them. That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. Not your typical trip to the store. A Target shopper records video of a snake slithering across a can of beans. Plus, for the first time in 6 decades, the ruler of Cuba is not a Castro. We'll have the latest. But first, it's 5:37.
Bundle up. It's a cold one, record cold as a matter of fact. We got temperatures below the freezing mark, and it's going to take a while before we get a chance to even see the 40s. Now, we just wait for sunrise here. We got about an hour left. 6:35 is officially what we'll call it over Joplin. Then we can head on up. Mid-50s, as good as we're going to get today, so that's still good. 15, 17 degrees below normal, and widespread frost when you head out the door, along with a freeze warning lasting all the way until 9 a.m. Wednesday looking good on future track. Now Thursday, That's when we develop out to the west. Got some showers moving in, not looking at anything severe. Does intensify there into the yellow as we get from Thursday night into Friday morning. And then 60s, so that'll be a nice change of pace with overnight lows in the 40s and 50s. We'll take that into the weekend. We'll be right back with World Watch next.
This is Brad at the 66 Auto Center. My grandpa says if you're not first, you're last, and it's fun to go fast. But it's more important to be able to stop. You stop by and see us and let us look over your car.
After record-setting cold late last night and breaking a record this morning, at least we see some 50s here for the afternoon hours. Sunny skies with a little northwest breeze as we progress toward the lunch hour, and then topping out around 55 later on. Still do have freeze warnings in effect until 9 a.m. though. Creeping up on the thermometer, next shot for rain going to be Thursday afternoon into Friday morning.
Topping World Watch, for the first time in 6 decades, the ruler of Cuba is not a Castro. Maybe the end of the Castro era, but the Castro ideology lives on. Patrick Oppman reports on the new leader of Cuba's Communist Party, emphasizing continuity in the face of dissent and economic challenges.
Already president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel is now also the first head of the island's powerful Communist Party since the revolution to not be named Castro. Diaz-Canel was chosen on Monday as the first secretary at a closed-door Congress of the Cuban Communist Party, the only political party allowed on the island, after Raul Castro said he was retiring, if not completely ending his influence. He will be consulted on the most important strategic decisions affecting our nation, Diaz-Canel said of his predecessor. At 61, Diaz-Canel is far younger than the 80 and 90-year-olds who fought alongside Fidel Castro, and since the revolution have occupied most of the top positions in Cuba. U.S. officials who have met Diaz-Canel say while he is less likely to lecture about the evils of imperialism than the Castros, he is a firm believer in the system they created.
Really, to move on and to enact the kind of reforms that Cuba is going to need to enact, they've got to move well beyond the Castros.
While few expect younger officials like Diaz-Canel, who was handpicked by Raul Castro, to deviate from the party line, the symbolism of a Cuba without the Castros officially in charge is striking. Most Cubans were born after the 1959 revolution, and until recently have only known a Castro at the helm of their country. Now that this famous family that has impacted Cuba so deeply is beginning to let go of power, the question becomes whether the Castro's revolution can survive without them. Despite the injection of new blood at the top, the Cuban government is struggling to adapt to the times. Critics on the island use increased internet access to show what they say is growing poverty and injustice. An economy ravaged by COVID has led to longer and longer lines for food. The Trump administration placed some of the toughest sanctions on Cuba in decades, which President Biden, so far, appears reluctant to lift. As he announced his retirement, Raul Castro said he was leaving power, but not giving up his long fight. I will continue soldiering on as one more revolutionary combatant, he says, ready to make my modest contribution until the end of my life.
Now, Castro will turn 90 in June, the age his brother Fidel was when he died. In eastern Cuba, Castro has already built a tomb for himself next to the grave of his wife who died in 2007. Cuba's future is uncertain, but the era of Castro's uninterrupted long rule is coming to an end. President of Chad was killed when visiting troops on the front lines. An army spokesman says President Idriss Déby Itno, who ruled the Central African nation for more than 3 decades, was killed on Tuesday. His campaign says he was joining troops battling what he called terrorists after rebels in Libya attacked them in the capital, N'Djamena. His death coming just hours after he was declared the winner of the April 11th presidential election. The country's top military commander made the stunning announcement on national television and radio. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for something to talk about.
Thank you, Tanya. On the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll, a new proposal in Los Angeles would give cash, no strings attached, to thousands of residents. And our question to you is asking what you think of universal basic income, as Mayor Garcetti unveiled those plans just yesterday. Roy D. Mercer says, get a job, bum. And then Rocky Cunningham asked, who's paying for it? Come on, man. We do love you, Aunt Pat. Rocky says it's the law of common sense, the old wagon. Dave Sorick says, reason enough to move to LA from the 4 states, little Beverly Hillbillies, except Dave substitutes subsidies in homeless camps for millionaires and movie stars. Evan Harkrader says, can't wait for people to see that it won't help anything. And John Trebian, I know, let's put neon signs up at the border. Let's say free, 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 no work necessary, get a job. Good morning, KOM, good morning, America, and good morning, John. Senator Robbins echoes those sentiments from John and says, get a job. And Guy says, perpetually poor for perpetual Democrat votes. So you're living below the poverty line? What a temptation to grab an extra $1,000 per month just for being poor. Guy says, I think I can do that. I have a master's in poverty. Now that you're on the board, Mr. and Mrs. Socialist, you must stay on the poverty train with no destination, or a vote for a Democrat is your ticket to ride. On the Insta poll this morning, 70% of you say, bad idea. You can make your voice heard going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Be back with the news you need to know before you head out the door right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Derek Chauvin faces decades in prison after his conviction on murder and manslaughter charges in the death of George Floyd. The former Minneapolis police officer's bail was revoked immediately after the verdict was read. The 45-year-old is expected to be sentenced in June. The White House is preparing a plan to cut the country's greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. It's based on a starting point that was set back in 2005. An official announcement could come as soon as today. Republican-led Oklahoma House passes a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The vote sends the bill to the GOP-controlled Senate, which failed to consider a similar bill earlier this session. Opponents raise concerns the bill could lead to the NCAA pulling some championship games from Oklahoma. The Women's College Softball World Series is held in Oklahoma City, generating more than $20 million annually. Joplin Schools Board of Education meets last night to discuss many topics for the district. One in particular is a list of capital outlay projects aimed to better the district's infrastructure. A few projects were aimed at improving Jung Field. One is to improve the safety of handrails in the stadium. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
High 20s, low 30s, and yes, it's the latter third of April. And this is where we stand. That's why we're breaking all these records left and right. Broke the record yesterday for a record low because we got down to 29 degrees about quarter till midnight. Turned the clock into this Wednesday morning, dropped back down to 29, so we broke it for April 21st. Just been something else lately. At least the snow is pretty much gone. Day planner for this afternoon, be around 50 at the noon hour, top out around 55, so it's going to be a welcome change. Going to stay dry for today. Next development's going to be Thursday, and it'll take place out to our west. We'll eyeball this, not looking at anything severe. It'll be on us about Tuesday afternoon, but then really increase there Thursday night into Friday. That's when it kind of picks up some steam. Temperatures, though, headed into the 60s for the weekend, and of course, you can always find the latest on the Skywatch weather app.
Well, a Target shopper didn't have this on her list. She was browsing the aisles and was caught off guard when a snake slithered across some canned goods. Janine Moose reports on the grandmother who's now having a good laugh over her close encounter with the reptile.
Attention shoppers, that's no mere spill in the grocery aisle at Target. That's a snake.
And there is a snake on top of the baked beans here.
Now you'd expect to see snake jewelry at Target, or a snakeskin bag, or Drano Snake Plus to unclog your drains. But when Diane Dupre first saw an actual snake at this Apex, North Carolina Target,
I thought it was a child's toy. So I thought, oh my goodness, somebody's pranking me. Where's the camera?
But she ended up whipping out her own camera, finally realizing it was real.
The tongue came out. And that's how I knew.
Diane couldn't stop chuckling about her own reaction to the snake that targeted Target.
Can't even look at this. It's, hurry. I'm telling the men to hurry.
Okay, so it wasn't a venomous snake or a man-swallowing python. It was a harmless rat snake that employees removed and released back to nature. Target says it sanitized the area and brought in a pest control company to do a full evaluation of the store. According to an animal expert at North Carolina University,
these snakes are out of hibernation. They're moving around. They're looking for food. They might be looking for mates.
well, don't look at Diane's snake. She already has a mate.
I have had it with these mother snakes on this mother
Shelf of beans, in from the bush and onto the bushes.
At least she's laughing about it now.
I don't blame the snake. It's in the canned goods section. It was obviously looking for Bush's baked beans. That's what it was crawling over right there.
It's got good taste.
I mean, Garden the Secret recipe, right? Bush's gave up on the dog. Garden the Secret recipe, they're like, I got an idea. We're going to unleash a snake.
Mm-hmm. A dog's a little more friendly. Look.
That is true.
They might need to work on their marketing just a little bit on getting people to pick up the can.
I think Jeannie was just looking for a reason to get snakes on a plane in one of her stories.
Yeah.
That's all that was. On the Facebook page, you can always go to @MichaelHayslip, KOAM. Just give you an idea of what we've got coming up each and every morning there. We're talking about record-breaking cold this morning. What happens if I hit this right here? There we go. There loads up the old video. That's the same one you'll find on the Skywatch weather app. And on the KOAM News Now Facebook page this morning, asking what you think about Los Angeles' idea for a guaranteed basic income program. Michelle Pacini with the free money meme. Douglas Blake says, let us ponder a moment. The people this would assist already have many options. Welfare, Section 8, food assistance, phones, meals, rides, education. Douglas says, seems more like a Democrat-style boost for votes program. Why not offer assistance to those that have to keep up without entitlements? On the News Now Facebook page, Instapoll, let me update this real fast. 74% of you say bad idea. It's kind of been in the 70s all morning long. You can make your voice heard by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Let's come back, see if we've warmed up at all on the Skywatch Storm Tracker right after this. Short answer is no. We have not warmed up. We're still sitting high 20s, low 30s, and so it comes as no surprise that the freeze warning really hasn't gone anywhere. It lasts until 9 a.m. And nice thing is, at this point in time yesterday, we were talking winter weather advisories, so at least we don't have any of that to worry about. We just got to find a way to stay warm. Now, by the time we get to the noon hour, we're creeping up close to 50 and topping out, this afternoon, around 55. Overnight, still dropping back down into the 30s, but should be able to avoid the freezing mark, at least widespread. Thursday, development of rain out to the west. Here it comes through about Tuesday afternoon, spreading across the Kansas-Missouri state line through northeast Oklahoma, and really wants to pick up here late Thursday night into Friday. We'll be back right after this.
The verdict is in for Derek Chauvin after 3 weeks and hearing from 45 witnesses. We'll tell you what comes next. Plus, more details on the embezzlement charges filed on 2 former Quapaw tribal leaders. And Joplin School Board meets to discuss improving the district's infrastructure.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. After a record-setting night, we're ready for spring soon. Here's Michael with a check on your forecast.
And a record-setting morning as well. Man. Yeah, we hit 29 degrees, quarter till midnight. That set the April 20th record. Then as soon as we turn the calendar to April 21, we drop back to 29, breaking the April 21st record set back in 1966 and 1978. 34 degrees is where we stand right now in Joplin, 28 in Parsons, right at the freezing mark in both Nevada and Lamar. Skywatch storm tracker remains clear. Little cloud cover up to the north and freeze warnings lasting all the way until 9 a.m. Give you an idea what those wind chill numbers are. Now we're down to 22 in Mount Vernon and 23 in Cassville, Nevada, and Stockton. Our numbers are going down. Calm sunrise. It'll get here about 6:35, and once it does, then we begin to creep back up to the 50s, close to the 50s by the noon hour, get it up into the mid-50s here a little bit later on. Big development, other than trying to warm up, is tomorrow. All right, so there we see rain develop out to the west and rolls through during the afternoon hours, but then picks up as we go from Thursday night into Friday. Temperatures, hey, at least we're going to get some 60s on the board here for the weekend, and then we're throwing up 70s by next week.
I'll take those 70s. Just have to wait to get to them.
Maybe I can take off like one of the 18 layers that I need to before I go outside.
Mm-hmm. You know, usually I think it's the coldest in the studio, but it's even colder in the new studio.
No.
It's next to the
with you on
window. Woo!
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Need to go grab some blankets out of the car. Stay warm today. All right, thanks, Michael. Derek Chauvin faces decades in prison after his conviction on murder and manslaughter charges in the death of George Floyd. Former Minneapolis police officer's bail was revoked immediately after the verdict was read. The 45-year-old is expected to be sentenced in June. The Republican-led Oklahoma House passes a bill to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The vote sends the bill to the GOP-controlled Senate, which failed to consider a similar bill earlier this session. Opponents raised concerns the bill could lead to the NCAA pulling some championship games from Oklahoma. The Women's College Softball World Series is held in Oklahoma City, generating more than $20 million annually. We have more details on the charges filed by the Quapaw Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. KOAM's Chris Warner has been following this story and has more.
On Monday, we brought you the list of charges and allegations made by the Quapaw Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. Now we're taking a closer look at the charges against Mr. Berry and the others alleged to be involved. One of the charges is embezzlement. It alleges Berry took $1.5 million broken up into a series of monthly installments from the Saracen Casino Resort and Q Store and claimed they were success fees as bonus payments. Another of the notable charges is conspiracy. Now, there are 2 counts of conspiracy in the court documents, Count 2 and Count 5. Count 2 alleges that Berry conspired with Merlin Jones, then the CFO of Downstream and Saracen Casinos, and a consultant, Alan Mock, to embezzle funds from the casinos totaling just over $1.3 million. Those funds were issued as checks to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. The Quapaw Nation alleges that Berry then directed Mock to deposit 3 checks totaling more than $500,000 into a personal bank account owned by Berry. The other conspiracy charge, Count 5, alleges that Berry worked with Merlin Jones, Jack Brill, and Tamara Smiley Reeves to embezzle more than $4 million from Downstream and Saracen Casinos as success fees or bonus payments. Those payments were allegedly made to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. There's also a civil case filed by the Quapaw Nation against Berry, Smiley Reeves, and 7 others. They include Jack Brill, Janet Cummings, George McWaters, Marilyn Rogers, Sherry Smiley, Tina Smith, and the heirs of Merlin Jones Jr. Jones passed away earlier this month. Those charges include fraud, constructive fraud, conversion, and unjust enrichment. We reached out for an interview with John Barry, and while our request was declined, John Barry's spokesperson told us that Barry and the others named in the indictments have filed a defamation suit against Michael Crump with Innovative Gaming Solutions, which conducted the audit that ultimately led to the charges, as well as current Secretary-Treasurer Guy Barker and current Chairman Joseph Byrd. That suit was filed in February in Cleveland County, Oklahoma District Court. A motion to dismiss filed by the defendants has been scheduled to be heard on April 26th. I'm Chris Warner for KOAM News.
You can find all the court documents and information on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Missouri's health director has resigned. Governor Mike Parson announced the departure of Department of Health and Senior Services Director Dr. Randall Williams. Williams was appointed to the job in 2017 by Parsons' predecessor, former Governor Eric Greitens. Williams helped lead the state's response to the coronavirus pandemic and is leaving amid the vaccine rollout. Parsons says he's naming his Deputy Chief of Staff, Robert Nodal, to be the state's acting health director. Joplin Schools Board of Education meets to discuss many topics for the district. One in particular is a list of capital outlay projects aimed to better the district's infrastructure. A few projects were aimed at improving Jung Field. One is to improve the safety of handrails in the stadium.
It's just going to be a lot better for people that, once you climb stairs or you get tired, or if a person that's older has a little trouble with balance, we want them to be able to have a little bit safer trip up to the top of the stadium, especially. And that's for everybody's safety as well.
They want to add handrails to the top and say these should be throughout the entire stadium. They also want to waterproof Jung Field to avoid any more leaks. For a list of all their plans, you can check out the full story on our website. 6:07.
If it were a January morning, we'd probably be talking about what a gorgeous sunrise we're going to have with a little bit of cloud cover. It is April, and yet here we are with wind chills as low as 22 right now in Mount Vernon. All right, 6:35 is going to be official sunrise. And at least we can head in the right direction. We'll get mid-50s here later on after record-breaking cold for yesterday and today. Next shot for rain going to be Thursday, late afternoon, carry us through Thursday night into Friday.
All right, here's a look at that was a look at your 7-day forecast. That's a look at your morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, it's Wildcat Wednesday, and we hear about an upcoming auction helping raise money for 4-H. Plus, your home improvement projects may be getting more expensive.
It's been a hot commodity during the pandemic, and prices continue to rise. I'm Fami Redwood with a look at how the high demand is affecting the cost of a new home.
Plus, as the U.S. hits a vaccine milestone, questions remain over how to get more needles into arms. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. In Money Watch this morning, the pandemic caused shortages for everything from appliances to toilet paper. While supplies have returned closer to normal for most products, one item remains elusive. Femi Redwood reports.
Construction company owner Ray Perkins has plenty of business, but rising lumber prices keep cutting into his bottom line.
Normally they're $349 a 2x4, now they're like $649, $650.
Hardwood, lumber, 2x4s.
Interior designer Heather Kirk says that's boosting her clients' project costs.
We've gotten examples of anywhere from double to 3 times what those materials were costing previously.
The high prices are from a global lumber shortage and a huge boost in home improvement projects when the pandemic forced people to stay home. And the high demand continues to build into 2021 with the ramping up of major construction. The National Association of Home Builders says wood costs are adding $24,000 to the price of a new home.
There's not a lot of industries that can absorb a 60-70% increase in its demand without having supply issues.
Steve Sala is president of lumber buying cooperative LBM Advantage. He believes building will slow down a little in the coming months, and Americans will shift spending from home improvements to travel and entertainment as infections drop.
I think prices will ease a little bit in the summer. The average lumber historically has been between $300 and $400 per thousand board feet. Right now it's over $1,000. I see it in the $700-800 range by summer.
But he doesn't think lumber costs will return to normal levels until the middle of next year. Femi Redwood, CBS News, New York.
Venmo users can now buy cryptocurrencies. The mobile payment app owned by PayPal is rolling out a new feature that allows users to buy, hold, and sell Bitcoin and 3 other digital coins. Venmo will also make available in-app guides and videos to help people learn more about crypto. 8 billion sauce packets from Taco Bell are used every year, and they may soon get a second life away from the garbage. Fast food chain is partnering with TerraCycle, a company that collects non-recyclable materials, melts them down, and remolds them into hard plastics that can be used as something new. Not much else is known, but Taco Bell promised participation in the recycling program will be easy. Apple wants to help you find your keys. Hey, the tech giant launched a tile-like item tracker called AirTag. It works with Apple's software and services and lets you track items within Apple's Find My app on iOS. You'll also be provided with notifications when you're separated from your item. Apple says the tracker should last for a year of battery life, and it will be available for $29 on April 30th. That's it for Money Watch. Let's toss it over to Michael for our weather.
I'm going to steal this idea from Diana King Hall. She said you could put that in your car when you go to the mall, and that way when you walk out, you forget where you park.
That is an excellent idea.
Where did I park?
Now they need to make that for Android too.
Like I said, that was Diana King Hall's idea, not mine. Weather Almanac for this April 21st. We've already broken a record low, got down to 29 degrees. That ties the record not only from 1966, but also 1978. And late last night, about a quarter till midnight, we actually broke the record for April 20th, got down to 29 once again. Starting to see a little sunlight outside of Television City. Should really make for a gorgeous morning, albeit a frigid one. 34 degrees with a wind chill right now of 27 in Joplin, 31 in Pittsburgh, 29 in Anderson, and only 28 in Neodesha. A little light cloud cover is filtered in there from the north. It'll push off. Freeze warnings lasting all the way until 9 a.m. and wind chills dipping as low as 22 in Mount Vernon, 24 in Independence. Skywatch storm tracker, at least the trough of the jet stream is beginning to push off to the northeast right there. That'll allow a little bit of this southwestern warmth here in the next coming days to help us out. As we're getting closer and closer, we were down to about -6 or 7 there earlier as far as our 24-hour temperature change. 50s around the noon hour, top out in the mid-50s. Future track's going to stay dry. Thursday morning, we see development out to the far west. Won't be on us until the afternoon hours and really doesn't pick up until Thursday night. As it does, though, Thursday night into Friday, we see a little intensification, not looking at anything severe, and positive side of the mercury, 60s by the time we get to the weekend. Back with a Wildcat Wednesday right after this.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, the White House started a $150 million push Monday to help more Americans get a COVID-19 vaccine. The focus is on helping underserved and vulnerable populations access the shot and convincing skeptics it is a shot worth taking. Emily Schmidt has more from Washington.
In mid-December 2020, critical care nurse Sandra Lindsay received the first COVID-19 vaccine shot in the U.S., setting an example she hoped others would follow.
I trust science. What I don't trust is getting COVID-19.
4 months later, the CDC says over 130 million people 18 and over have had at least one shot. That's just over 50% of the adult population.
Getting a vaccine will help protect you. It will help protect others, and it will help us end this pandemic.
As of Monday, anyone 16 or older in the U.S. is eligible to be vaccinated. The Biden administration estimates 9 out of 10 Americans live less than 5 miles from a vaccine site. Yet so far, Black and Hispanic Americans have gotten vaccinated at lower rates than their share of the population. Dr. Anthony Fauci says leaders who question the vaccine are playing politics with public health.
On the one hand, they want to be relieved of the restrictions, but on the other hand, they don't want to get vaccinated.
At the same time, the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine remains on pause by the CDC and FDA after 6 cases of rare blood clots among women who received the vaccine. That's fewer than 1 in a million. The U.S. Surgeon General says a decision about how to move forward is just days away.
A signal was seen. It's being investigated. That's what you want, to know your vaccines are both safe and effective.
Johns Hopkins University says more than 3 million people are getting a vaccine dose each day. Public health officials hope they're just getting started. I'm Emily Schmidt reporting.
A new study shows that Johnson & Johnson responded to first reports about their vaccine potentially being linked to blood clots, with the media statement saying Pfizer and Moderna vaccines showed similar issues. Dr. Yoonju Lee of Weill Cornell Medical College says that J&J statement is not true. Is saying they found no one with blood clots when studying Moderna and Pfizer's vaccines. A new study finds getting too little sleep in middle age may raise the risk of developing dementia. The study looked at data on nearly 8,000 people in Britain over about 25 years, starting when they were 50 years old. It found people who slept 6 or less hours a night on a regular basis between the ages of 50, 60, and 70 were 30% more likely to develop dementia. That's compared to people who typically got 7 hours of sleep each night. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Still bitter cold out there, with temperatures ranging from the high 20s to low 30s. We got a couple mid 30s that have kicked in now. We've got temperatures up into the mid 50s later on this afternoon. Big development is going to be tomorrow, as the rain will begin during the afternoon hours, carry us through all Thursday night and into Friday. Friday is going to be a little bit of a wet one. Finally, we get a chance to calm off. 60s for the weekend.
Salon service is provided by The Wild Side in Pittsburgh for over 25 years.
Fred, did you remember to set out the trash?
I forgot, but I'll get it.
And I'm sure you remembered that tomorrow's our anniversary, right?
Sure I did, honey.
Oh, did you remember to notify Missouri One Call to have the underground utilities marked?
I forgot. But I need to do that before we get started.
Fred, there are some things in this world you should never forget. And that's one of them.
You're right.
Only your locally owned Cub Cadet dealer has genuine parts, accessories, trained service technicians, and the widest selection of industry-leading Cub Cadet products. We're here for you whenever you need us, with expert service and support to keep your equipment running at peak performance for years to come. Take advantage of exceptional financing offers from your local Cub Cadet dealer today. To find the dealer near you, visit cubcadetdealers.com.
An estimated 80,000 Americans won't receive a timely cancer diagnosis because of COVID-19. Too many people are delaying life-saving cancer screenings and treatment, but cancer won't wait. Be assured we have taken extraordinary measures to protect your safety when visiting our hospitals or clinics. So whether it's here at CTCA or elsewhere, please get the care you need, because cancer won't wait, and neither should you.
Brought to you by Ashley Home Store. This is home.
The verdict is in for Derek Chauvin after 3 weeks and hearing from 45 witnesses. We'll tell you what comes next. Plus, more details on the embezzlement charges filed on 2 former Quapaw tribal leaders. And Joplin School Board meets to discuss improving the district's infrastructure.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We're waking up to another very cold morning, but at least there's light at the end of the tunnel. Here's Michael with a check on your forecast.
Slowly but surely we're getting there. Gorgeous look outside of Television City right now. We are about, we got 5 minutes till official sunrise, but sky's beginning to lighten up. Just a little light cloud cover that moved in from the north. It's a cold one though, as Tanya alluded to. 34 degrees with a wind chill right now of 27 in Joplin, 30 in Independence, 30 in Monette, and 28 right now in Miami, as the Skywatch storm tracker with that cloud cover kind of hovering over the central portion right there. A lot of that not even able to hit the ground. Got a pretty dry air mass. Do have a freeze warning, though, in effect till 9 a.m. this morning. Not going to be surprised if we don't turn that into another freeze warning and frost advisory overnight into Thursday. Here's what it feels like right now. Wind chills have dipped as low as the low 20s, starting to see some high 20s get back up there now that the skies are beginning to lighten up. And the trough of the jet stream will eventually head toward the Great Lakes, kind of ease off on us. Now, one thing that's going to allow Mother Nature to do, though, is the cold front's going to be replaced by Gulf moisture, and that will present us with rain beginning on Thursday. And like I said, we get through Wednesday just fine. Here we go, building out to the west with that the Gulf precipitation, and as it moves through, it really kind of picks up Thursday afternoon, and as it moves through, it's going to last all the way there into Friday. It kind of intensifies late Thursday night into Friday morning. Going to hear some rumbles of thunder and see some lightning with that. Not looking at anything on the severe thunderstorm risk map, so that's a good thing. And we actually get some 60s here as we head toward the weekend.
Hey, 60s is better than 30s and 40s.
After record-breaking cold for the past 2 days, all of a sudden 60 don't sound too bad.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. I can't wait until we hit 80. That would be amazing.
That'll be great. We're not going to know what to do with ourselves.
Summer? I can't wait. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, after 3 weeks and 45 witnesses, the jury took 10 hours over 2 days to come to guilty verdicts in the trial of Derek Chauvin. CBS's Skylar Henry is in Minneapolis with reaction from the family and the community.
Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony. Find the defendant guilty.
Derek Chauvin showed no reaction as the judge read all 3 guilty verdicts.
Find the defendant guilty.
The jury convicted the former Minneapolis police officer of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. Chauvin was then led out of the courtroom in handcuffs.
Find the defendant guilty.
Floyd's family and attorneys celebrated the news.
It's been a long journey. Today, we are able to breathe again.
Prosecutor Jerry Blackwell.
Now, no verdict can bring George Perry Floyd back to us. But this verdict does give a message to his family that he was somebody, that his life mattered.
Thousands of people were here in downtown Minneapolis cheering when that guilty verdict was read. Some of the people that we spoke with say that now they hope a better conversation can come about how to better improve the relationship between law enforcement and the community.
This is the start, definitely. I just thank God for Minnesota for the truth.
President Biden spoke with the Floyd family.
I wish I were there, just put my arms around you.
And told the nation that change is on the way.
Through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory.
The judge is expected to sentence Chauvin in about 8 weeks. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Minneapolis.
There are 3 other fired Minneapolis officers who will be facing trial in August on charges of aiding and abetting murder in Floyd's death. We have more details on the charges filed by the KOAM Nation against former Chairman John Berry and former Secretary Treasurer Tamara Smiley Reeves. We're taking a closer look at the charges against Mr. Berry and the others alleged to be involved. One of those charges is embezzlement. It alleges Berry took $1.5 million broken up into a series of monthly installments from the Saracen Casino Resort and Q store and claimed they were success fees as bonus payments. Another of the notable charges is conspiracy. There are 2 counts of conspiracy in the court documents, count 2 and count 5. Count 2 alleges Berry conspired with Merlin Jones, then the CFO of Downstream and Saracen Casinos, and a consultant, Alan Mock, to embezzle funds from the casinos totaling just over $1.3 million. Those funds were issued as checks to John Berry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. The KOAM Nation alleges Berry then directed Mock to deposit 3 checks totaling more than $500,000 into a personal bank account owned by Berry. The other conspiracy charge, count 5, alleges Berry worked with Merlin Jones, Jack Brill, and Tamara Smiley Reeves to embezzle more than $4 million from Downstream and Saracen Casinos as success fees or bonus payments. Those payments were allegedly made to John Barry, Jack Brill, Tamara Smiley Reeves, Merlin Jones, and Janet Cummings. There's also a civil case filed by the Quapaw Nation against Barry, Smiley Reeves, and 7 others. They include Jack Brill, Janet Cummings, George McWaters, Marilyn Rogers, Sherry Smiley, Tina Smith, and the heirs of Merlin Jones Jr. Jones passed away earlier this month. Those charges include fraud, constructive fraud, conversion, and unjust enrichment. We reached out to for an interview with John Barry. Our request was denied, but John Barry's spokesman tells us Barry and the others named in the indictments filed a defamation suit against Michael Crump with Innovative Gaming Solutions, current Secretary-Treasurer Guy Barker, and current Chairman Joseph Byrd. That suit was filed in February in Cleveland County, Oklahoma District Court. A motion to dismiss filed by the defendants has been scheduled to be heard April 26th. Of course, we'll be following that. Joplin School Board of Education meets to discuss many topics for the district. One in particular is a list of capital outlay projects aimed to better the district's infrastructure. Now, a few projects were aimed at improving Jung Field. One is to improve the safety of handrails in the stadium.
It's just going to be a lot better for people that, once you climb stairs or you get tired, or if a person that's older has a little trouble with balance, we want them to be able to have a little bit safer trip up to the top of the stadium, especially. And that's for everybody's safety as well.
They want to add handrails to the top and say these should be throughout the entire stadium. They also want to waterproof Jung Field to avoid any more leaks. For a list of all their plans, you can check out the full story on our website. And that's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, a deadly use of force.
A black teen in Ohio is shot and killed at the hands of a police officer. I'm Laura Podesta with why officials were quick to release the body camera footage just hours after the incident.
Plus, for our Something to Talk About, we're asking, what do you think of universal basic income? We let you weigh in, but first, it's 6:37.
Just past sunrise over Joplin, a couple minutes past now. Let's try to warm up a little bit because we still got temperatures in the low 30s. We'll progress up around 55 degrees. Stay dry today. Rain coming tomorrow afternoon. Be back with Nation Watch next.
Topping Nation Watch this morning, just hours before the verdict was read in the Derek Chauvin trial, a black teen in Ohio was shot and killed by police, responding to a call of a potential stabbing. CBS News' Laura Podesta shows the video of what led up to the deadly use of force. We want to warn you, this is difficult to watch.
Officials in Columbus, Ohio released body camera footage just hours after a black teenager in the city was shot and killed by an officer. Columbus police say they were responding to a 911 caller who said someone was trying to stab them.
We think it's critically important to share as much information as possible.
Police say 16-year-old Michaela Bryant was trying to stab 2 people with a knife. The officer fires and Bryant falls to the ground. The teen was later pronounced dead at the hospital.
Deadly force can be used to protect yourself or the protection of a third person. So that is within the policy, and that was within the law. That is what the law says. Whether this complies with that will be part of that investigation.
But that claim of protection of the 2 other women did not stop protesters from taking to the streets into the night to demand justice for Bryant's life. Officials are calling for calm while the incident is investigated. It's unclear who started the initial fight or who called police. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
The matter is now in the hands of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. The police chief says the officer is being put on administrative leave. Later on CBS This Morning, you'll hear from Bryant's mother, who spoke exclusively to the CBS affiliate in Columbus. President Joe Biden's green infrastructure package is getting support from coal country. President of the United Mine Workers of America says the $2 trillion plan from the White House will create desperately needed jobs for the industry. The rebuilding of bridges, airports, and ports would benefit the coal industry due to the increased demand for steel. The coal industry has lost roughly 50% of its jobs in the U.S. since 2011. That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page, talking about the proposal in Los Angeles that would give cash, no strings attached, to thousands of residents. The mayor releasing the proposal yesterday. Our question to you is, what do you think of a guaranteed basic income? Rick Norton says, what a crazy idea. It's illegal to buy votes. Oh, wait, these are democratic cities. They obey no laws. Chad Kennedy asks, wonder who's paying for this? These communities that are bankrupt are wanting to give money away. Where do they get it? Buck Thomas simply calls it stupid. Colleen McGuire says, as soon as I read Los Angeles, dang, you lost me. I got time here for a couple more. Let me scroll up a little bit. Jerry Morrissey says, I want to finish with Jerry's because I like what he had to say. Lee Duncan says, you can't just print more money for bleep like this. Keep it up, and we'll all be in poverty when hyperinflation comes around to the U.S. dollar. Jerry Morrissey brings up a good point about a little cost of living adjustment. He says $1,000 a month in L.A. isn't going to do anything. Where's the money coming from? Most of this state is bankrupt. Why do we want to set people up for full-time government assistance when the qualifications were mentioned? Nowhere did it mention people had to be in the U.S. legally. As far as our Instapoll goes this morning, it's been consistent, if not growing, as far as 78% of you saying think universal basic income is a bad idea. Still got to make your voice heard, chance to make your voice heard, whether it be on Facebook or our morning Instapoll. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Going to come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries next.